What's up? What's up, y'all? Come on into the Rooted in Progress Stream Center. We are happy to be with y'all. We got Ty Russell in the building.
Uh-oh. That means trouble.
Go ahead and bring Ty.
Oh, no. People don't need to see me.
Put Ty in the chat. Bring Ty in the chat.
There I am.
Welcome.
Right off the top,
you guys are
get
so
straight
nice.
to it.
This is how we do it on Rooted.
Yes.
Well, not really, but because it's you, this is how we do it on Rooted in Progress. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you guys. Thank you.
Glad to have you, man.
Yes. I'm your girl, Deanne King, host of Rooted in Progress. We got Terrance Middlebrooks, co-host of Rooted in Progress. You ready for this one, Terrance?
Man, I'm excited. I'm excited. The time is here.
Oh, yeah.
It is now.
I feel like we've been talking about elections.
Yes, and that's what we're talking about today.
Election. You know what I mean?
We're diving right into the elections here.
And it's, in all seriousness, all of our listeners, everybody knows how important this election is. Everybody knows how important voting is, just in general. That is our right.
Yes.
So many people work so hard for us to even obtain these types of rights and to be able to exercise our right to vote. And I know you have been fully inundated with all things elections, Ty. So break everything down to us.
Yeah, and folks, you guys don't know, Ty Russell is one of our WFLA anchors and the political reporter here.
Yes.
Ty, give us a little bit about your background and what you're going to talk about today, man.
Yeah. So I spend a lot of my days covering politics here. On the weekends as well. I'm also a weekend anchor, but sometimes I'll even do political stories there from Miami 305, Mr. 305.
Come on, Mr. 305.
Okay.
Go Nose as well, FSU. That's where I graduated from. Yeah, so I've been in Florida for, basically all my life. And coming up for elections, I mean, of course, there's the presidential election, but some of the big races that I've been focused on, of course, is the race between Rick Scott and Debbie Mukersel-Powell for Senate. The polls are tightening there. However, Rick Scott still has somewhat of a lead there. And then going down the ballot, when it comes to Tampa Bay, one of the congressional races here is probably the tightest one in the state. And it's the race between Representative Ana Paulina Luna out in Pinellas County, and she's facing Whitney Fox, a newcomer.
Why is that
to
such
the
a
scene.
contentious race right now?
Well, right now, many of the voters over in that area, especially Republican voters, are not really thrilled with the current leadership. They want to feel more represented. Now, Ana Paulina Luna is unapologetically MAGA. And some of the voters over there are more moderate. And so some of the moderate Republican voters are kind of upset with the leadership. So that's why this race is tightening. And Whitney Fox knows that she has to court those Republican voters as well. And so she's making sure that she views herself as that moderate figure who can unite both sides, Democrats and Republicans. Because if you follow Ana Paulina Luna on X or Facebook, she speaks out a lot just about many issues, especially the ones that involve former President Trump.
Wow.
And so that is a key race that everybody is watching.
And then what about state attorney?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And that's a little spicy one.
Oh, yes. Very spicy. If you monitor both of their Twitter feeds on X, it's spicy. Let's just say
That's
that.
a good way to put it, right?
Yeah, and they're actually going to be on a political show that I host, Battleground Florida, this Sunday at 9:30 a.m. We are interviewing both of them, Andrew Warren.
Make sure y'all tune in to that.
Yeah, and Susie Lopez. So we're going to hear more from them this Sunday. But yeah, Susie Lopez, of course, is trying to win the seat. She was appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis after Andrew Warren came out and said that he was not going to follow, the law when it comes to the abortion law that, lawmakers recently passed. So there was some drama there. He was suspended, and then he brought in Susie Lopez, and now Susie Lopez, she wants to stay in the seat. And of course, Andrew Warren wants his seat back. But the big question is, if Andrew Warren wins,
what happens?
What will DeSantis do? And so far, we're all waiting for that question to be answered.
There's so much to unpack with this ballot. I'm literally looking at the ballot right now, and we could spend 12 episodes on the ballot itself. And Ty, I know we're going to let you go because I know you have a lot to prepare for as you continue to monitor and watch these elections. But before you go, I want to ask you, when you're questioning these lawmakers, you get like that firsthand interview and you get to hear that firsthand knowledge from these lawmakers. Do you think their messages are resonating with constituents right now in our area?
Well, that's hard. I mean, the only way that I will actually find that out is after, the election, really. Mm-hmm. But a lot of voters, what I do find for us as journalists, we have to be so very careful, especially in this time, So I do find that we get a lot of respect for the stories that we do, how we ask the questions. That's why oftentimes in many of my stories, I like to air my question on how I ask, because a lot of people are just looking at us first. They're like, what is he talking about? How is he phrasing this? What is he? So I think a lot of it is journalism focused right now, but I'll see if their messages are resonating with voters. I guess I'll find out after the election.
And Ty, before you go, we're going to talk about early elections started on Monday, October 21st. And record number of turnouts. So you want to just dive into that real quick before you depart us?
Definitely. Yeah. Well, I've been looking at the early voting numbers, and right now in Florida, Republicans are outpacing Democrats. Yeah. And so the Florida GOP is happy with that. This election cycle, we've been seeing a different message from Republicans nationally, just encouraging Republicans to vote early. Usually Republicans voted on election day, like most of them. And Democrats were all about vote by mail and voting early. But now we're seeing a difference here. And that could be, many analysts are saying it could be a precursor to help former President Donald Trump be able to claim victory early on in the election cycle.
Look at the game plan there.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, we're going to continue to watch it. We know you're busy. Ty, thanks for hopping in and chatting with us here and Rooted in Progress. Terrance, Ty brought up a really good point as far as analysts go, right? And it's so interesting whether you're watching, for all of our listeners and our viewers right now, whether you keep an eye on local news, whether you're looking on a national level, political analysts are very busy.
Yes, they are.
Right about now. And we are honored to have our very own News Channel 8 political analyst joining this conversation with us today as well, Tara Newsom. Thank you so much for hanging out with us on Rooted in Progress, Tara.
I love being here with you.
Hi, Tara. Welcome.
We are so happy to have you. And we also have the man himself, Craig Latimer, Supervisor of Elections here in Hillsborough County. We appreciate you for joining us as well. And I know both of y'all are busy. I know Craig's going to join us. Terrance figuring out all of the magic and all of the motion right now to get Craig in this conversation. While he does that, Tara, I want to ask, there he is.
Hey, Craig, just going to bring you in. Showing you some love right here, Craig.
Welcome to the chat, Craig. I know you are beyond busy and coming off the heels of that conversation that Terrance just, or the question rather, that Terrance just asked Ty. Early election numbers, like this is very interesting from your standpoint and your perspective. How different is it this year so far?
It is different. I've been, of course, looking back at the 2020 election numbers. And of course, remember, we were in a pandemic then. We had a huge vote by mail turnout. We had a very good early vote turnout, but we had literally nobody turned out on election day. What we're seeing right now is we've had, since early voting started Monday to Wednesday here at 3 o'clock, we've had over 48,000 people have voted at early vote.
Wow.
We've also gotten back over 91,000 vote by mail ballots. So we've still got a lot of those out there, though. We've got 228,000 ballots, over 228,000 that we sent out. So the bottom line is that we're a little bit behind on early vote right now.
Really?
So I'm going to be anxious to see how these numbers start to spread out. If vote by mail picks up, early vote picks up, or we do end up having a better than average election day. I think that we had something like, it was just a really minor percent turnout on election day in 2020. So we'll see how that goes. But ironically, I've checked in with some of my colleagues around the state. Some are reporting that they've had a 50% increase in early voting. Wow. Others have said, like us, that they're behind the 2020 numbers.
Wow. And do you know why? Why do you think so many people are making it a point to go to the polls early and get their votes in now rather than on election day?
Yeah, early voting has always been popular in our area. Before the pandemic, it was always we had a third of our people voted by mail, a third voted early, and a third voted election day. And we saw, early votes started to do a little uptick for us too. That's why I offer the full 14 days, 12 hours a day. We've always had a good turnout at our general elections on that. But like I said, I'm going to be kind of anxious to see how these numbers start to spread out. The one thing that concerns me is these two back-to-back storms that we've had.
My goodness. Yeah, for sure.
We know we've got people that have been displaced. Shoot, I lost an early vote site. I've lost 7 election day sites to flooding and different issues. So, there's people that all live around those sites too. So we know that, some of these people are going to be displaced. People are busy still trying to get trees off their roof, find places to live, clean things out. So we're just trying to put the word out, to have a little bit of a plan here to make sure that you can take a few minutes to come out and have your voice heard.
And Craig, my question to you is with the recent storms and the devastation to your polling sites, how has transportation provided for those who are without just that transportation? And again, you said it, I want to hear it again. Like, how do you think this will affect the voters during the early voting?
So Heartline is currently offering free transportation through, I believe, October 28th. So people are able to get around with that for sure. Our polling sites on election day, we really try and pay attention to areas that may have less transportation than others. So those are going to be smaller precincts, easier to navigate type thing. And we continue to do that. So I don't know that transportation is a real issue right now. I'm more concerned with people that maybe ordered a vote by mail ballot and then they got flooded out of their house and they've moved someplace else.
And they can't get that ballot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so that was one of the things that the governor did an executive order, and he loosened up a little bit, that if somebody has been displaced, if they'll call their supervisor's office, we can arrange to get a vote by mail ballot to them at where they are now by furnishing us with some of their personal information.
Wow,
and
that's
Craig,
very important.
And Craig, remind me and remind all of our viewers and our listeners right now, that deadline is when?
Thursday, the 24th at 5 p.m.
There we go.
So
Gotcha.
it's here. And people need to know that. But, again, early voting is open right now.
Yes.
12 hours a day through November 3rd in Hillsborough County at 27 locations around the county. So, we're on it. And just a quick reminder to people, too, that if you go to an early vote site, you can go to any early vote site in the county. We're going to print your specific ballot for you right there at that early vote site. And the difference is on election day, you have to go to the polling site that's affixed to your precinct. Right. And the reason for that is your ballot's already printed and it's waiting for you at that polling site.
Yeah. I like to go on election day. It feels more patriotic. I mean, and I feel like if when I get off of work, it's a weird time. So it actually kind of like works out. But I very important information there. Of course, if you do wait, if you're me, you wait until election day, make sure you are going to your actual voting precinct. Yes. And Tara, I want to bring you in here. Ty was talking about it. Speaking of early voting numbers as of right now, Republicans are showing up and showing out. What do you think is the why behind that?
Well, we don't have the messaging that we had in 2020 that was really sort of a chilling effect on people using early voting. Remember, at that time, President Trump wasn't real favorable about mail-in ballot voting or even early voting. And so the messaging is a little bit different this time. But we just got to hold off for a minute and make sure that we're not putting all the Republican votes in the winner's basket just yet, because just because they came out to vote early or are doing mail-in ballots, that could be they just don't show up on election day. Of course, in Florida law, and Craig could speak to this, we don't count the ballots. We count them, but we don't have the results until the day of the election. So no one really knows if all those Republicans are actually voting R or not. And we're not talking about the biggest growth of our electorate, which is the undecided. And right now, there's a lot of people who are still in that column, which they're just still trying to figure out if they're going to vote and who they're going to vote for.
Why do you think our state is being so closely watched during this election? Tara, Craig, you both can chime in on this because I know we could probably go on for a while as to why. There are so many reasons why everybody's watching the state of Florida right now.
Craig, if you don't mind, I'll just hop in for a second.
Go
I
ahead.
think Florida has always been this bellwether state, right? We were purple for so long, and yeah, we swung red, but there's still these pockets, these high density pockets like Tampa Bay, Miami, Orlando, the I-4 corridor, that really are a place to watch and get like a temperature on the whole country of whether or not it's going to go red or blue. And so I think that's one of the realities of Florida, that we have a real mix of people, and that in different areas of the state, we're still somewhat purple. Certainly I'm in Pinellas County in St. Petersburg. And, you know, that race that you were talking about with Ana Luna Paulina against Whitney Fox, it's being really watched because it's whether or not the Republican MAGA can control the next 4 years of Republican Party in the state of Florida. That's one of the reasons why that election is being watched so closely. In Florida, as a 30 electoral college votes, is a deciding state on who wins the presidency. So I certainly think that's it too. And then you got to remember that we have a really diverse Latino population. It's not monolithic in the state of Florida. And so we have lots of different types of expressions of Latino voters, and that really makes a mix up on how they're going to vote. And so I think when you want to do micro-targeting politics, Florida's someplace to watch because different messages pull different voters into the mix.
Yeah, that's some good input there. Craig, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and right on top of that, you know, in Hillsborough County, we've got over 857,000 registered voters. We're the fourth largest county in the state. But having said that, 857,000 registered voters, that's larger than the population of 4 states. So we do have a big electorate, and it is extremely diverse here.
It's really diverse, and both of you all bring up a really good point there. And Tara, I have to ask you this because a large part of our audience, we created this space, Rooted in Progress, to talk about issues that target and particularly affect Black communities across Tampa Bay. So I have several questions as it relates to that, particularly with you, Tara, but I want to start with how important is the Black vote in this election?
I mean, come on, you can't turn on the TV and not recognize that people of color are playing a critical role in deciding this election.
Yeah.
Both candidates are trying to speak to those communities, and they have totally different messages, don't they? And I think that's been really interesting to watch. I want to circle back, though, to not only why people of color are important to this race, but why people are watching Florida. And I think that there's sort of a duality in those two ideas. We didn't speak about our constitutional amendments that are really a big draw for all eyes of America to be on Florida. Certainly, amendment number 3 and 4 are really important for the country, right, Craig? I mean, I think it's fair to say that people are watching how we're going to behave on recreational marijuana, what we're going to decide about codifying the right for a woman to have reproductive freedom. And, you know, that has really been an interesting watch in really red states like Ohio, who had had J.D. Vance at the top of their ticket, but yet voted to protect women's rights to vote. And so it's starting to show this kind of fissure in the Republican Party and how issues can peel away certain voters from a straight Republican ticket. But as it relates to people of color and their importance to this race, you know, different demographics vote differently. I mean, we study that in political science. And of course, Craig can speak more to that about Hillsborough County, but diversity is destiny in politics. And so our populations of color are really the destiny of American politics. By 2045, the browning of America will be a reality, where we'll have this rich, robust, beautiful country made from love and these beautiful babies. And, you know, the white electorate will be in the minority. And so I think this is one of the first elections that we're really seeing, hey, populations of color, Black people, other communities of color are able to really tip the scale on who wins and who doesn't. And that means those leaders must listen to the issues that those voters bring to the table in a much different way.
Very well said. Craig, historically, what have we seen as it relates to minorities coming out to the polls? And do we have any projections? I know that might be hard to answer, but do we have any projections of what we might see in this current election?
Yeah, so, you know, there's politics and elections. I leave the politics to you guys. I can tell you about the elections. You know, it's my job to make sure that everybody that's eligible to be registered to vote gets registered. And then those that are registered have the ability to cast a ballot with no encumbrances whatsoever. We do a tremendous amount of outreach. in all communities of our county to make sure that we're getting the word out. You know, what I like to tell people is that if you're voting in my county, if you vote by mail, I'm sending you a ballot. If you don't vote by mail, I'm sending you a sample ballot. So I've basically sent an invitation to come to this party to every single person that's registered to vote.
I love that, Greg. I love
literally, it's up to groups and parties and candidates to get those voters out. You know, to your point, yes, we do a tremendous amount of outreach in all the communities in Hillsborough County.
Yeah, I love that as well, because we've seen and we continue to see in other states where particularly communities of color don't feel that way, and it's not happening. And there are things, I think, beyond a lot of people's control. But when you have leaders like Craig Latimer's in your communities that are making sure no matter what you look like, no matter what your house looks like, or no matter what your income is, that you still have the access and the right to vote, that goes a very long way.
And let me just jump in real fast and say, not only are we lucky to have our leadership and our supervisor of elections, but we also have a lot of boots on the ground leaders.
Yeah.
We are souls to the polls on Sundays. We have student groups like at St. Pete College who are calling themselves Freedom Riders, offering anyone who had a car destroyed in the hurricane, get in their car and we'll drive you to whatever polling place you have to be. We've done an amazing job across Tampa Bay and all the institutions, universities, and colleges to register people to vote. So there's a lot of people on the ground who are just our neighbors, people we go to church with, the people we go to work with, that are like lifting out their hands saying, I don't care who you vote for, but let me get you to the polls. And that's been really inspiring. And as a professor of 25 years, I'm like, you can take me to the polls with you.
Like, you better go. Bring me too while you're at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really wonderful outpouring of support from, you know, the ground up on people wanting to make sure everyone has access to democracy. And it's great to hear our supervisor of elections talk about that.
Yes, and that's great, because I've run into several young people here recently that will, you know, and you've heard it throughout you all's career and everything, of the fact that how young people feel like their vote doesn't count. I would go vote. I'm not going to vote because of the fact that my vote doesn't count. And I try my best to encourage them that you do. It does count. Get out and vote. And Craig said it best. They're providing ways to where really there's no excuse for anyone to cast a ballot. Correct, Craig?
That is correct. You're 100% correct. And, you know, the young people, we try and certainly have our younger people that work for us try and engage them too and talk about that. And, you know, I like to tell the story about I've had to literally flip a coin to settle an election because it was a dead tie. If one more person would have voted, it wouldn't have been. But now somebody got to win by the flip of a coin.
Wow.
So I try and encourage people to you know, think of that and get out and vote. And, you know, the 18 to 25-year-olds in Hillsborough County make up the second largest block of voters by age, only outdone by 60 and above.
Wow.
So that 18 to 25-year-old group has a tremendous amount of power. And that's what we try and really, you know, again, go out there and put that word out. You know, it's the old adage, you can drag them to the water trough, but you can't make them drink.
Yes.
Yep.
But we at least try to let them know where the water trough is.
Exactly.
That's
Well,
it.
if they knew how powerful they were, they'd come out to vote. They're 44% of the electorate. They're the second largest voting bloc. Baby boomers are getting older and they're not going to vote all the time.
Yes.
So this is the next group that's going to come in and make the decisions about democracy. That's such a great point, Craig.
And they have to. Like, it's just point blank, period. They have to. That age group is critical. I know one thing, and you mentioned this briefly, Craig, about how the storm has affected and potentially can continue to affect this election. I know you had to make some changes to voting sites. What do those changes look like? Is there any information you want to get out there for folks who may have actually been impacted and their precincts and voting locations may have changed?
Yeah, so everybody that's had a precinct change will be getting a postcard in the mail. Hopefully, they're still getting their mail. But more importantly, you can go on our website right now, votehillsborough.gov, look for that hurricane button, click on that, and it'll give you all the changes, like where we moved the West Tampa Library early vote site to the David Barksdale Senior Center, and where these 7 election day sites are going to be going to. And most importantly, we just want to tell people, do not hesitate to pick the phone up and call our office. We are here to serve you and let you know what you can do to have your voice heard. We want you to plan and come out and vote.
I know some folks might be thinking about it. I know especially the first day early voting actually happened. We had some hiccups with sites going down. So what's the backup plan when and if that happens, particularly on election day?
You're talking about an actual voting site?
Yes.
Yeah. So we actually have what we call pop-up precincts.
Okay.
We're able to come out there and set a precinct up right across the street or right next to something. But we've also, we've got staff out on the street with replacement equipment, whatever they need to get that site back up and running again. Fortunately, because we do a lot of preventive maintenance on our tabulators and also on our electronic poll books, we're not seeing a lot of problems like that. But we have had, power go out. Shoot, we had a car wreck right in front of one of our polling sites, and it hit the power pole and knocked all the power out there.
Oof.
But we're, like I said, we've got the ability to put one of these pop-up sites out there and keep things going right away.
That's really good. Tara, when you're seeing these stories of low-income communities and communities of color feeling as though voting isn't as accessible to them, what are you seeing with that narrative and that story that we often see, especially during this time, during election season?
Young voters, especially voters in communities that face obstacles like economic obstacles, political efficacy obstacles, it's really all about the issues that we're talking about that sometimes our larger ticket doesn't talk about, like affordable housing, transportation, how to put a meal in their bellies or in their kids' bellies. And so a lot of this has to do with the fact that they have to wade through not only those issues that they normally have to manage, but now the hurricane response. And so sometimes we're seeing these communities really just have such a burden on them that they can't even get to, does my voice count? Should it count? And we're trying to, at the community college level, take those burdens away by finding pathways to, of course, education, pathways to voting, pathways to personal efficacy and stuff. But the truth of the matter is that the narrative that we're seeing on the TV right now and through the candidates' political rhetoric it makes everybody want to turn it off, whether you're a community of color or anyone else. And so, we joke about the fact that right now, we're looking at those undecided voters, but the reality is that people are mostly decided. They just haven't decided if they're going to vote yet. And in communities of color, that's what I'm hearing. Hey, I kind of have an idea of what I want to do, but I don't know if I even want to vote. And that's why these kind of conversations are so important. And we haven't even gotten to some of the other top of the ticket stuff that is really razor thin, like Rick Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, Rick Scott only won an election by 1%. And, when you look back, not in the last gubernatorial election, but DeSantis's first, he only won by a couple 100,000.
You're right.
So every vote does count. And by not voting, that's saying something too. And that's what I'm truly trying to drive in to my students who are just not sure they want to go out and vote, is by staying silent, you're actually contributing to democracy in a way that you may not even understand.
With that being what you're hearing, and with that being largely in part a big issue right now, because you're right, that's what I see as well, even just on social media, when we're looking at the presidency, right? What do you think? We have a couple weeks left. So if you're Donald Trump, if you're Kamala Harris, what should their messages be right now if the main issue is folks might know who they want to vote for, but they don't even know if they want to go out to vote? So what should their messaging look like right about now?
It's interesting that you asked that, because all week we've been talking about the closing arguments. The campaigns are making their closing arguments. Surrogates are out making their last play for the voters. And I honestly really believe that both candidates really need to speak to the voters in what their lives are going to look like in the next 4 years. Which candidate? I think this is the winning sort of persuasive elevator speech, which is who's going to make their world, that not only the way they can pay for groceries, pay for an apartment and their car, but their world in terms of how we intersect with one another. We don't talk about this a lot, and forgive me because I'm both a teacher of political science and I also teach ethics, but the idea of how our social contract between us, how we behave towards one another, the culture, the political culture. And a lot of times I'm getting to students by not just talking about, hey, who's going to help you put dinner on the table? Who's going to help you create generational wealth yourself by making sure that you can buy that first house and afford that car and be able to send your kids to a good school. But how do you want to live in that neighborhood? Do you want to be able to say hi to your neighbor, or are you afraid that they're going to run you over? Like, those are the kind of conversations that we're also having, excuse me, because of the political ethos. We've had such a divisiveness. People want to get away from it. And if either candidate can make that case that not only will they be able to, put food in their refrigerator and send their kids to school and be safe, but also be able to have that neighborly America again, I think they're going to be able to win their vote.
Wow.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and
That's
we keep talking about who we're going to vote for, what person's on the ballot, what people are on the ballot. Let's also talk about some of these amendments on the ballot here. For the Hillsborough County, there's the adult personal use of marijuana, which is Amendment 3, and Amendment 4, the interference with abortion. Tara, can you elaborate on those as well as any more of the amendments that are on here?
Well, so let's talk state constitutional amendments first, okay? Because that's probably the place to start, because I think a lot of people are really trying to wade through that before they get to the end of the ballot, and that's just the way it goes. So we have 6 state constitutional amendments, and some are a little more interesting to people than others. But the ones that people are really paying attention to, beyond number 1, which is the nonpartisan school board race, and that really is changing a 1998 constitutional amendment that the state had already decided on, and whether we put partisan labels on our school board members. Mm-hmm. That came up, of course, because of the very controversial backing that Governor DeSantis had on a number of school board races in the state, and the rise of the Moms for Liberty that ended up winning many school board races, and a lot of the controversy and the culture wars that came with that. Of course, number 2, I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to, but is really important if you're a fisherman or someone who likes to hunt, because I think you think saying yes might mean one thing, but saying yes might mean not having scientists and policy experts really decide how much can people access fishing and hunting. There's a really old essay that we used to be called Tragedy of the Commons by Thomas Harden. And it was that if we overuse our natural resources, there's not going to be any for anyone, right? That's the tragedy of the commons. And so people really need to start thinking about number 2. But it's 3 and 4 that have captured the attention of not just Floridians, but the whole country.
The whole country.
The whole country. Lots of states have passed recreational marijuana. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of states saw their governor use state funds to talk about a citizens initiative. And what's unique isn't just recreational marijuana, and then of course 4, which is the right for reproductive freedom being enshrined in a constitution. It's that those are citizen initiatives. That's one of the best places for direct democracy to be expressed. Okay. Sure. And yet we have a sitting governor, which we've never seen ever before, use state funds to run campaigns. And that's why people are watching, because they want to see how this plays out. Will Floridians pay attention to the governor? Will they take heed and really read the language and understand what it means? And so that's been very controversial. Of course, the remainder of the state constitutional amendments have a lot to do with inflation of homestead, deductions, and of course, whether or not we want to continue to have the state pay for campaigns. And I think people just have to make reasonable decisions on whatever they think is the best use of whether or not increasing inflation is good for the homeowner or is too risky for the state budget. And of course, whether or not we want to have our state dollars in campaign funds. So those are the amendments in an overview. And I think you can kind of see the natural conflict in trying to figure out which way we have to go on those.
Right. And the bottom line is that was a mouthful.
Sorry.
No, but it's
don't be afraid to vote though.
Yeah, absolutely. But and then the thing about it is, people, when you get out there and vote, understand what you're voting for, who you're voting for. Don't just get out here and vote on name recognition, or because I've seen so many commercials on Amendment 3, vote yes, vote no. What am I going to do? I'm just going to, flip a quarter, as Craig said, flip a coin and vote that way. There's sample ballots out there.
You got to acknowledge the misinformation campaigns that we're seeing.
Absolutely.
You got to call it out.
I don't know if we have time for that, Tara.
I don't know.
We could be on here for 12 hours, like she said.
Yeah. In Hillsborough County, we've got additional questions on the ballot too for the CIT tax,
we have the millage
tax, and also the school tax. And if you live in the city of Tampa, there's a third one on there for residency requirements for the city. But just one little side note here. Please put out to your people and let them know that they don't need to call my office anymore. I do not write those amendments. Don't try and make them hard to understand. I don't write them at all.
Do people call you about that,
text
Craig?
messages from students say they're harder to understand than my exams. So I'm like,
do people call your office about that, Craig?
Yes, they do.
Man.
They'll call, usually talk to my administrative assistant or my communications person. And the other thing is trying to find the information on them about what does it mean if you vote yes, and what does it mean if you vote no. And Tara, you hit that on the head right there. Because oftentimes the way they're written, it might think, oh, okay, yeah, this is good, but then I vote yes and something else happens.
Exactly.
So, we there's not a lot of information out there where people make a concerted effort to tell you what it means without telling you how you should vote.
Right.
So Craig, real quick, the
League of Women Voters does, just to let you know.
I know there's a couple of universities have think tanks that do it also.
Okay, yeah, and I think that was leading up to my question is, so Craig, if we can't call your office, if I'm just a new voter out there that don't quite have the or understand these amendments and the language that are present here, where can I go to find the truth? Where can I go and get the information that you Tara just mentioned?
I think, and Tara just hit it. The League of Women Voters is one outlet that does have nonpartisan information on there. The University of Central Florida and the University of Florida also have civic associations affiliated with their college where they break down the different things. And actually, I saw something in the Tampa Bay Times the other day where they kind of explained what the amendments were going forward there.
Yeah, that's good. And it's valuable information too, because we were just talking about how important 18 to 25-year-olds are. Yeah. And so when you add all this mojo jojo foreign language stuff, you know what I mean? That within itself is already, it might strike fear, in an 18-year-old who's new to voting. And like you said, Tara, they might just go up there, either skip it. Maybe they don't even fill in the bubble, or just have it's like the meme with the question marks. Like they're just
you revert back to the commercials that you just recently saw.
Yes.
And you vote that way.
Yeah.
Or the algorithm that your Instagram went to. And one of the things that Craig said that I love, and we talked about the other morning, is making a voter plan. And if you're not sure about the ballot, requesting a mail-in ballot before Thursday and and I have 4 kids, okay? 3 of them are voting. Now, we did a Zoom just like this. We pulled out that ballot. I poured a big glass of wine, and I said, pull out those $1,000 phones I bought you. And I didn't tell them what to vote for, but I said, look up every single one of those judges. Well, we don't know. I said, look a little bit harder. It took us a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know what? The information is power, and decision making. They felt comfortable who they voted for. They knew how to do it, and now for the rest of their lives, they're going to sit down and they're going to research before they vote. And I don't recommend
a big jug of
wine. The wine was important for Mom, but it's important to make sure that you do your research before you sit down with that ballot.
Well, and Tara, what you do in your house is your business. So we don't.
I just want to add to it that voting down the ballot is really important too. This is one of the things we preach. The county commission, city council, the school board, these are all taxing authorities. These are people that affect your pocketbook. You're like your county commissioners. They're responsible for infrastructure, your quality of life issues. Is your garbage getting picked up? When you turn your water on, does water really come out? And that's one of the things that we really try and impress upon people, the same way with why primary elections are important, but also voting down that ballot is extremely important to your local races.
Yes.
I'm so glad that's
local races are so important. And I think people, especially now, November, this general election, it's like president. And I'm like, baby, what's going on your street?
Who's your sheriff?
Like, are you focused on the things and the people? While the presidency is very important, don't get me wrong, right? However, this future president, it takes a long time to get to you. Yep. You know what I mean? And so let's vote, just like you said, Craig, down the ballot and make sure we're also taking precedent, I think, especially with what can have an effect on your daily life. Yeah. Both of you all said that. And I think all of our listeners right now, if you are confused, if you still don't know who you want to vote for, I think our experts here, they have provided a wealth of knowledge
Yes.
on how to become educated with this ballot and how to make sure you're an informed voter. I've been seeing, I don't know if y'all follow Don Lemon, but he has been going around and interviewing just voters on the street, and they'll be like informed voter, non-informed voter. What do they know? They don't know nothing. All these videos of all of these people have all these opinions, but don't know a thing.
Yeah. It's entertaining when you sit back and watch. I've seen several reporters who show up at polling sites and just ask that question: who are you voting for? Why are you voting for that?
Yeah.
And some answers are real, some answers are hilarious. So, but the most important thing is that they're out there voting.
Yeah.
And people, you have time. We're 12 days away, if I'm not mistaken. I might be
Only
wrong.
just a few.
Few days away of actual election day, and there's time, there's information out there that can educate you on your vote.
Yeah. Tara,
Yes.
Craig, before we go, your final message to our listeners, to viewers, constituents here across our area. And I mean, we have viewers who listen who aren't in Florida. What's your message to voters right now, especially if they're undecided or if they don't know how to go out and vote? I know, Craig, you can't talk about the politics, but how to go out and vote, or if they're struggling to vote.
Yeah, and I think, we've said it, have a plan and do that research. That is so important. This is a long ballot in our state, in our county. It's going to be a 2-card ballot. If you don't do your research, you're going to be standing in that privacy booth for about 35 minutes, and you're not going to make good decisions at that point. And I want to see people, like I said, vote for everything that's involved there. I think what, Tara, you probably need to tell us, what was the inspiration? Was it red wine or white wine at the place? And I'll leave the rest of you.
Craig,
Come on,
what?
Craig.
I like them both. I'm an equal opportunity wine drinker. But I've got to tell you that that I'm so thankful for the supervisor of elections in our state. That is one thing.
Yeah.
State of Florida. I hope people that are watching and listening, we do not need to worry about the integrity of our elections in the state of Florida. We have leadership like Craig and the rest of our supervisor of elections. We have 67 counties, and we are exceptionally lucky that they have high integrity and they have processes to make sure that every vote counts. And the only piece that I would want to say to anyone is that you are powerful, our democracy needs you, and that we are only as strong as each of our voices when we lend them to pluralism. And I hope that everybody needs a encouragement to vote, that they've got it today. And I got to thank both of our hosts. This is an amazing program, Rooted in Progress. I'm going to give extra credit to my students to listen in.
Yes, let's do it. Tara, thank you so much. You are always a joy. Craig, you are incredible. I know you can't talk about politics. I'll just nice little plug. Supervisor of Elections, Hillsborough County is on the ballot, guys. So I'm just gonna throw that out there right now. Craig is like, oh my God, get me off the screen right now.
and Craig, I'm gonna say one more thing. I'm gonna say one more thing to the people, guys. Please give Craig and his staff some grace. They've worked hard, long hours. They don't have the answers to everything. So if you show them love, they will show you love. So, or as they show you love, show them love back. So Craig, thank you for being here. Thank you for everything that you've done and are doing for both you and your staff. Thank you, Craig.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you for having
Tara,
me.
Craig, we appreciate you joining us and hanging with us on Rooted in Progress.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Terrance, we have a very important thing to do between now and November 5th.
Yeah.
That's vote.
Yeah.
So all of our listeners, no matter what you look like, no matter where you live, if you are in a position where you are affected by the storms, make sure you are tuning in and checking in with your supervisor of elections offices to see the resources that they have provided for you all. So I'm excited. to vote.
I'm excited. I'm an early voter type guy. I don't think I have the patience to show up on election day.
I can do it. I got time.
Yes, I don't have the patience. I may have the time. I just don't have the patience. But I also want to let folks know that, listen, if you're one of those people like me who don't have the patience, take advantage of early voting. Not only you can pretty much go to any polling. If I'm not mistaken, I think Craig is gone by now, but if I'm not mistaken, you can go to any polling location in your county to vote, to cast your vote. That doesn't mean because come election day,
you only can go to your precinct.
Dedicated to your precinct. And then when you pull up to that precinct and that line is from here to Polk County, You're going to be
Period.
upset.
And you better stay in it.
Yes, when
and
you
vote.
have 2 weeks up until I think November 2nd, if I'm not mistaken, for you to get out there
Early
as you
voting
on your
is
way to
November
work, on your way
3rd.
to grocery store, on your way to your club or whatever. Swing by and cast your vote. It's important.
Going to the club before 7 is wild. Anyhow,
Happy hour. There we go.
there we go. Happy hour. Hey, everybody.
Yes.
Tuning into WFLA, Ty Russell. We had him on our show earlier. He has an incredible show, Battleground Florida. It airs every Sunday. He will have actual candidates. I know this week, in particular, if you're listening during this week of October 24th, he will have Susie Lopez. He will have Andrew Warren on his show. He is answering and doing those pressing questions to the people on our ballot. So if you are still undecided, if you are still uninformed, get informed.
Yes.
You have no excuse, all right?
Whatsoever.
Rooted in Progress, everybody. Make sure you follow us, add us, do all the things on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. We are here every single Thursday at 11 o'clock in the morning, live on the WFLA Facebook page and the WFLA app. For now, I'm your girl, Deanne King.
And
Terrance and
Terrance,
Middlebrooks in the
yes.
building. Stay rooted.
All right, guys.